And hello there, it is Friday, and that means it is time for our Lunch and Learn with me, Dr. Polly Heil-Mealey at Abundant Health and Wellness. And so today we're going to be separating the sense from the nonsense on dietary lectins and whole grain diets. So a lot of what you're seeing out there on social media is just, as my late husband would say, a lot of claptrap. And that means it's nonsense. And so trying to separate what you need to know from what you've heard. Now, there is, I've got three different pieces that I'm going to share with you today, both written by medical doctors who are holistic. So you're going to get some really good scientific studies to back up what I'm going to say to you today. So hopefully that you've got some pen and paper if you're concerned about gluten, if you're concerned about lectins, if you have read the book, The Plant Paradox. I will tell you, I have not read the whole book. I have read several excerpts of the book. I have patients that come in all the time and they're asking me about the book. They're bringing me passages and that kind of thing. So I'm familiar with the book. I have not studied the book, but I wanted to bring some enlightenment to this because a lot of people are just confused. And so I don't want you to be confused. Now, the first story that I want to go with is written by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Now, Dr. Fuhrman is a board-certified family physician, and he is a recognized expert on nutrition and holistic natural healing. So he really advises nutrition. He studied nutrition, and so he's a really, really good expert here. And so he says here, unfortunately, nutritional misinformation abounds regarding the consumption of health-fortifying, nutrient-rich plant foods. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, all right, says that most of their spending, 75% of their spending, goes toward treating chronic disease instead of preventing disease. And most of these diseases are diet related. And so if the Center for Disease Control says that most of our chronic diseases are diet related, then we need to recognize that, we need to look at that, and we need to arm ourselves with good nutrition. Now, Hippocrates said, let your medicine be your food. So I'm really a proponent with that. I want you to use food as a lifestyle change most of the time. However, I do understand that not all food is as nutritious as we would like it to be, and so we need to kind of move forward with that in mind. I still believe in supplementation, but I also believe you need to have a really, really good diet, okay? So the foods that people are knocking are, let's see, nuts, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, whole grains, and beans, okay? So all of these are really, really good nutritional foods, and the books that are out there are saying to avoid these foods because of lectins. Now, the truth is that the scientific evidence does not support the view that lectins are harmful to our health. What is harmful to our health is promoting the idea that has led many people to being afraid of eating health-promoting foods like beans and tomatoes. Now, I'm just going to tell you, as a Christian, I think God is really, really smart. I wish I were as smart as he, but you know, that's an aspiration. It's not going to happen. But he's really, really smart. He created us. He created the plants that we eat, the foods that we eat. He's not going to create something that is a food and then have us to be allergic to that food or have that food not be beneficial to us. Now, in the main, all of these whole foods, foods that are grown the way they're supposed to be grown and eaten close to their natural state, are in the main healthy foods. Now, there are some people who are allergic to different things from time to time. So if you're allergic to it, don't eat it. But that's not the general population, all people at all time, which this book is trying to say. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there. It is acceptable to have a theory, but the idea that lectins are disease-causing and that people need to avoid beans and vegetables and nuts in order to get healthy and lose weight has been thoroughly disproven by thousands of studies documenting health and longevity benefits of these foods. The most recent book, and this is the one that I'm talking about, is full of twisted and incorrect information that will confuse the public. So this is the thing, you know, people that are smart, medical doctors and that kind of thing, they have a very large vocabulary and they can say things that sound good, but it's really, really twisted. Now, this particular book, the doctor says you don't need to eat these foods, but you need to buy these supplements from me, and I'm the only one that has these supplements so that you can get all of your nutrition. So I'm just going to throw that out there. That's what he says in the book. So, what are the potential benefits of the lectins? Okay. Lectins bind carbohydrates during digestion, slowing or preventing their breakdown and thereby reducing the glycemic index of those foods. Now, what does that mean? That means the foods are harder to digest. They do not spike your blood sugar. So all of us need to be worried about our blood sugar because there's so many additives in our foods, and all of those additives can spike our blood sugar. And if our blood sugar gets out of control, then what happens? We become diabetic, or we could have something called pancreatitis. Pancreatitis will almost certainly lead to pancreatic cancer if we're not very, very proactive. So we don't want that to happen, okay? It says you may hear that lectins disrupt digestion, but this is misleading. This action of lectins is most likely a contributing factor to the pro-weight loss and anti-diabetic effects of beans and other plant foods. Beans are rich in anti-cancer phytochemicals and are foods demonstrating the most powerful association with lower rates of breast cancer in massive epidemiological studies, including the Nurses' Health Study. Now, epidemiological means a health cause and effect, okay? So this is really, really important here. Lectins are common also in mushrooms and have found to inhibit proliferation of cancer cells. Mushrooms are another food offering powerful protection against cancer. But that's not the only one. Similar results have been found for lectins in fava beans, soybeans, bananas, buckwheat, jackfruit, and wheat. Some of these lectins are being investigated as potential cancer therapies. Now, I'm just going to tell you there, I don't like soybeans. I don't think any humans should be eating soybeans, and I'm taking my cue from Dr. Ted Broer, who is a PhD in nutrition. He says that soybeans are not beneficial to humans. They are almost always genetically modified, and they are endocrine disruptors. So for women, I don't want you doing soy products. An endocrine disruptor means that it affects your thyroid gland. It also will affect your estrogens, okay? So we don't want those things to be in our diet. So I am not a fan of soy. I tell my women I don't want you doing soy, okay? So just going to say that out loud. All right. It says there is one and only one lectin that has been known to cause temporary gastrointestinal distress in humans. So what is this lectin? It is the lectin found in kidney beans, okay? Now, I don't know anybody who eats dried kidney beans in their natural state, okay? Dried. I mean, it would break your teeth if you were to eat them dried. When you boil them, when you put them in a pressure cooker, when you soak them, you remove all of the lectins. And so it's the fact that they're saying this is a very, very bad food, well, you're not going to eat it in its dried state. You're going to eat it when the lectins have been deactivated by cooking, okay? So there are some people who are sensitive to lectins. Those people have bacterial infections, and they have intestinal bowel disease, inflammatory bowel disease. They could have some cancer, colon cancer, or they also could have autoimmune diseases. So I will say that if you have rheumatoid arthritis, you're probably best to avoid lectins, certainly the lectins in your nightshade vegetables. Now, your nightshade vegetables are your peppers, your green peppers, red peppers, any kind of peppers, your eggplant, and your tomatoes. I don't think that potatoes are a nightshade vegetable. They're a root vegetable, but I know that in our Plant Paradox book, they want us to avoid those as well. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, it says beans, vegetables, and mushrooms, nuts, and seeds are high content, fiber-rich foods that are consistently associated with nutritional benefit outcomes and a longer life. Okay, this suggests that if there's any potential negative of a certain plant lectin, it is enormously outweighed by the benefits of fiber and phytochemicals in these plant foods, okay? So we want to know that. So this is another report, and this report is by Dr. Joel Kahn, K-A-H-N. He is a cardiologist. He is a holistic cardiologist. So what does that mean? That means he has medical training, but he's also trying to deal with the body in a holistic way. And so this is what we want to do when we're looking for our experts. We don't just want to have a medical doctor that follows standard of care, right? We want to have a medical doctor that does the research, that uses complementary forms of medicine. So they use diet, they use exercise, they use nutrition to help reverse these chronic diseases. So he starts out, his piece is pretty funny, and he says, let's see, where does it says? These carbohydrate binding proteins found throughout the plant and animal world may act as a defense mechanism against some predators, but it also could be ruining your health, just as I have ruined mine tonight with citrus and legumes. Okay, so he's making fun of this. There are, and I think the book says that the lectins are insecticides that keep the plants from devouring the seeds of these plants. Well, I'm just saying, in its natural state, and we're not eating it in its natural state. Most of the time we're cooking these plants, and so the lectins are really no problem for us. He says, if you haven't read the sexy new research headlines on lectins, it is no surprise because there is no new research or even older research to suggest that lectins are problematic, okay? It says 2 strategies that work well in media and for medical authors are to tell people what they want to hear and scare them with data that seems to have firm scientific support that turns all existing knowledge upside down. Now, this is one of the little red flags that I use when I'm reading a report. If it goes against conventional wisdom, it's like, you know what, things have been believed for a long, long time. If you're throwing all conventional wisdom out the door, you better have some really good, sound reasons to do that. So you've got to look at things with a grain of salt, especially if it's saying that whole foods are bad for you, okay? Whole foods grown the way God intended them to grow and consumed in their natural state are very, very good for us, okay? He says, I kid you not, but on pages 263 and 265, so if you have that book, you want to turn to those pages real quick. This high-profile book are foods that you are allowed to eat and foods that you are to say no to. On the approved list is the one and only fruit that is permitted, and that is an avocado. We like avocados. We all like avocados, okay? The fact that all other fruits are banned would seem to contradict dozens of studies supporting the life-sustaining aspects of eating fruit. Real data from real people in published studies demonstrate that the more portion of whole fruits consumed daily, the less risk of disease and early death. Yet in this book, all fruit is banned. Now, let's use a little bit of common sense here. If you are diabetic and your glucose is abnormally high. We don't want you eating a lot of fruit. Why? Because your sugar is already too high. And even though fruit has its own sugar and it's the right kind of sugar and it's the good kind of sugar, we don't want to have that much sugar if we are diabetic. Let's get your pancreas working right. Let's get your insulin working right. Let's eat some of these whole grains and whole foods that keep your glycemic index balanced, and then we'll kind of see where we go. I am not a proponent of banning all fruits. I'm just not. I think you should eat fruit. So I'm just going to say that out loud. Okay, whole grains. It says gone completely because gluten is one of the dangerous lectins and all humans must now avoid them completely. Now he's saying this a little bit tongue-in-cheek here. Okay, the doctor said so. Full-fat dairy is on the approved list with 18 versions of a high-fat Swiss cheese recommended. Now, I'm all about high-fat, good fat. That's a good thing for you. But you've got to not just eat high-fat foods. You've got to eat whole foods. Why? Because we are a whole human, okay? And whole foods help us there, okay? Okay, if this were a joke, it would be a bad one. As the best-selling book, praised by people who reach millions and millions of loyal followers, it is dangerously akin to pointing out the risks of oxygen, okay, which is known to have the potential to damage tissues. As my colleague, director of the Yale University Preventative Research Center suggests, why not write The Oxygen Paradox and offer advice as to how to hold your breath to eliminate environmental toxins? Well, we have to laugh at that because what happens if we don't have oxygen? We're going to die. In similar vein, this doctor, who is a holistic cardiologist, says if you're not eating your whole foods, you're going to die. So listen to well-rounded wisdom, okay? So let me see. It says, please ignore, this is this doctor, please ignore the plant paradox just as you should ignore all books that recommend the dangers of fruit, legumes, as well as breathing oxygen as not being worth the paper that they're printed on. All right? So, high lectins containing starches promote a healthy life. So, I'm going to share with you some benefits of high lectin foods, and you're smart. You can make these decisions for yourself, okay? In a recent review, now this is in 2012, 45 prospective cohort studies, 45 studies, 21 randomized controlled trials. So that's a lot of data there. Compared people who rarely or never consumed whole grains with those who reported an average consumption of 3 to 5 servings per day. They found, okay, in this comprehensive meta-analysis that those consuming the grains had a 26% reduction in the risk of type 2 diabetes, 21% reduction in the risk of heart disease. So you're going to reduce your risk of diabetes and your risk of heart disease by 1/4 if you consume whole foods. So we want you to consume whole foods. Whole grains, this summary of the American Society of Nutrition says it is consistent, there is consistent epidemiological evidence that whole grain foods substantially lower the risk of chronic diseases such as coronary heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, and may also play a role in body weight management and digestive health, okay? Lectins, right, have drawn a lot of attention because of their possible anti-tumor activities. So you may have heard me say this, everybody has circulating tumor cells in their body. Everybody does. Everybody. You do, I do, everybody does. So it is the immune system's job to make sure that those circulating tumor cells are sought out and destroyed, okay? So whole foods have a anti-tumor activity. And so if you're eating whole foods, you are protecting yourself. It says the anti-tumor activities of different plant lectins have been shown for several cancer cell cultures, such as liver cancer cells, human bladder cancer cells, human melanoma cancer cells, and rat pancreatic cells. It is suggested that some of the lectins induce apoptosis, which is cell death, and remember, cancer cells never die. So these lectins induce apoptosis. That's the medical word for cell death. So they destroy cancer cells, okay? Based on the existing evidence, there are 4 consensus authoritative statements from national organizations, namely USDA, FDA, UK Joint Health Claims Institute, the Sweden and Danish dietary recommendations that link consumptions of whole grains with improved heart health. For example, UK products composed of whole grains can claim people with a healthy heart tend to eat more whole grain foods as a part of a healthy lifestyle. In Sweden, products with at least 50% whole grains can state, quote, a healthy lifestyle and a balanced diet rich in whole grain products reduces the risk of heart disease, okay? Lectins are not gluten proteins and should not be confused with them. Gluten tolerance is uncommon, fewer than 1 in 100 people, okay? Very important for those of us who have celiac disease. Not me, I don't have it, but some people do. So you've got to look at the big picture. Now, do I eat a lot of gluten? No, I don't. Why? Because in the United States, all of the wheat is processed, right? In the farms, industrial grown wheat is processed with Roundup, which leaves a residue of glyphosate on the grains. I think glyphosate, and the research shows that glyphosate, inside your small intestine, you've got these villi, and just pretend like this is villi. So you've got this surface, this surface, this surface, this surface, and on and on. All of your nutrients are absorbed in the small intestine through the villi. Glyphosate does this to the villi, and so you just have this little bit of surface. Now, if you go on a gluten-free diet, you clean up your diet, those villi will grow again, and you'll have all that nutrient absorption capability. So I don't do gluten, not because gluten is a bad food. I just have to make sure that my gluten is organic, and we have a whole lot less chance of having that glyphosate there. So this is another piece of information, and I think these are 6 reasons why you need to increase your whole grains in your diet, okay? So, and this is again from a holistic medical cardiologist, and we're all concerned about our health. Remember, the Bible says in the last days, men's hearts will fail them because of fear, okay? We don't want to be fearful, and we want to protect our heart, and so these are some good things here, okay? It is recommended that the adult, right, fiber intake would be 30 grams of fiber per day. The studies show that adults in the United States get probably less than 15 grams. So we're getting half of the fiber that we should be getting, okay? So grains and even gluten-rich foods can be healthy. There's massive amount of information on this. So this is a brand new study commissioned by the World Health Organization to determine if foods rich in fiber can best protect against non-communicable diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, as well as manage weight gain. These researchers included 185 observational studies containing data that relates to 135 million patient years. So this is a long study, okay? 58 clinical trials involving 4,635 participants. That's a lot. They focused on premature deaths, from the incidence of coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and stroke, as well as type 2 diabetes, colorectal cancer, and cancers associated with obesity. So that would be breast, prostate, and colon cancer, also endometrial and esophageal cancers, okay? So these are the results for every 8 grams of dietary fiber eaten per day, okay? 8 grams. 8 grams is not a lot. Total deaths and incidences of coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and colorectal cancer are decreased from 5 to 27%. So a lot of the range of 5 to 27% depends on how healthy you are. If you're healthy and you eat more grains or whole foods, then you're going to probably reduce your cancer risk by that 27%. If you're poorly, if you're ill, if you're fragile, and you eat whole grains, you're probably going to be more toward the lower end of that spectrum. But anything that you can do to increase your long-term health is a benefit. And whole grains, whole food, and fiber does this, okay? Protection against stroke and breast cancer also increased. Consuming 25 grams to 29 grams each day was adequate, but the data suggests that even higher intake of dietary fiber could provide even greater protection, okay? Whole grains are healthy. For every 15-gram increase of whole grains eaten per day, total death and incidence of coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, colorectal cancer was decreased by up to 19%, okay? So this translated to 26 fewer deaths per 1,000 people, okay? Fewer deaths to heart disease, and it shows that whole grains are very high in dietary fiber, which explain the beneficial effects. The experts say that fiber in your diet is supported by over 100 years of research into its chemistry, physical properties, physiology, and relying on the effects of your metabolism. So I could go on and on and on. One thing I want to, because I'm almost out of time, I know you only allow 30 minutes, but I'm going to go a little bit over, so I'm just going to warn you there. So if you've got a timer on me, I'm wise to you, okay? One of the things that a whole grain diet will do is it will reduce your exposure to heavy metals. So we always have people come in and they test for heavy metals and they want to know why they have heavy metals. Well, if you're following a gluten-free diet, okay, and this specifically says they found that people who were observing a gluten-free diet, they had blood levels of mercury, lead, and cadmium were higher than people who did not eat a gluten-free diet. The increased burden of toxic metals was found in those with and without celiac disease who followed the gluten-free diet. So I'm just saying, I'm much more concerned about heavy metals in the blood because heavy metals will make you go crazy. All right, you have a lot of personality shift. You have a lot of all kinds of things going on when you've got heavy metal. So I am not in favor of a gluten-free diet. So what do you do if you're sensitive to gluten? So I'm sensitive to gluten. I can eat a pizza. I can eat a piece of bread. I can eat, those kind of things with gluten, so mainly wheat products, right? And I will gain 1 pound to 2 pounds overnight. Now, I know how to fast. I know how to take care of that, so it's not something that I'm really worried about, but I am worried about high heavy metal toxicity in the blood. So we've got a product here. In fact, I was going to hold it up and show you, but I can't because we're sold out. But it is an enzyme that breaks down gluten. So if you're concerned about gluten, because you're like me, gluten makes you gain weight, then this product, and I have tried it, I do have it, it will help you break down the gluten so you won't gain weight. So let me just tell you what this is. It says avoidance of wheat products may not be enough to maintain a gluten-free diet. Did you know that gluten is used as a food additive and may be present as a stabilizing agent in salad dressings, ice cream, and ketchup, okay? So this particular formula, and it's called Carbo G is what it's called here, okay? It is created to complement those seeking a gluten-free lifestyle by encouraging more complete digestion and absorption of grains. So we do have this product here. If you're avoiding whole grains because you've read on social media that whole grains are wrong, I hope I've disabused you of that notion. If you're avoiding whole grains because of the gluten content, well, I want to disabuse you of that too, because you can buy organic whole grains that have not been sprayed with glyphosate. So we want you to do that. We want you to source your grains appropriately. Don't go out to the grocery store and buy your normal industrialized wheat products that are full of glyphosate. Look for the non-GMO project label, look for the USDA organic label, and then you're pretty safe that you're avoiding that glyphosate. But if you're just avoiding the grains because it makes you gain weight, and that's, that would be my deal. I have found that whole grains, if I'm doing rice or quinoa or buckwheat or any of that kind of stuff, I don't have a problem with the weight. It's mainly just the flour, and so I choose organic where possible. Now, when I go down the street to Italiano's and I have that piece of pizza, I don't kind of stress over it because I do a really good detox program regularly, and so I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. But also, I implement that Carbo G so that I break down the gluten that I am eating and then I don't have that weight problem. So, what are the takeaways here? Eating whole grains is good for you. It reduces the risk of heart disease. It reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes. It reduces the risk of breast, colon, prostate, cancers, okay, colorectal cancers. So we all want to have our cancer risk reduced. So hopefully this has been very informative and you've got some good information. If you want to get this Carbo G, just call us at the office. We can mail it to you. It is a practitioner-only product, so you're not going to find it at your big box stores in most cases. And if you do, it's probably a counterfeit product, because I know this company very well. I've been to their conferences and they state categorically that they do not sell to Amazon and they do not sell to the big box stores. So source your nutrients responsibly, source your supplements responsibly, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next week. Take care.